Hello there, so what's a bubble? I feel like it should be common knowledge at this point, but maybe I'm expecting too much. Every time a newly bubbled map is posted to Reddit, there's a comment asking what that means, and the responses aren't always fully informed. People ask me what it takes to rank a map all the time too, and it feels weird to answer because it just seems like something everyone already knows. I've mentioned various aspects of how maps are ranked in no shortage of videos, but seeing and receiving this question over and over again made me realize I've never made a video specifically talking about every part of the ranking process, essential information for any aspiring mapper. That being said, if you're one of the curious people with little mapping experience, let's talk about how to work your way through the ranking process. We'll be doing this in two parts, the first covering the mechanical steps of the ranking procedure, and the second explaining why those mechanical steps aren't enough information to actually rank a map. So, say you've just finished your wonderful map and now you want to get it ranked for the world to enjoy. For the first time since I've joined Osu, there's now slightly different paths you can take to do that depending on what client you use to upload the map. While using the stable fallback release build, uploading maps stores it on the Osu website and directs you to a new forum thread specific to your map. This is pretty much where everything about the ranking process for your map will be documented, and while the forum may not be the most prominent way future maps will be ranked, it's worth knowing how it works for the sake of comparison. You'll know why in a bit. Generally speaking, the ranking process is a peer review system, and so the first real step to the ranking process is getting constructive feedback from average players and mappers, usually referred to as the modding stage. Modding is the act of giving feedback, and so a mod is each occurrence of that feedback as determined by individual forum posts. During the modding stage, you'll need to find a few people to post mods on your map and help raise it up to ranking standards. What are those ranking standards? We all know everyone has their own opinions on map quality, but the ranking criteria is something that partially unifies modders in the feedback they provide. Located on the wiki, the ranking criteria is a huge list of everything necessary to create a map suitable for ranking, meaning if your map breaks any of the rules here, it's not going to get ranked. By accumulating mods throughout the modding stage and rewarding them with kudos, you'll notice that this current priority number increases in accordance to the amount of kudos earned on the thread. While it would be nice if a map's priority relative to other maps had meaning, this star priority number is more so used to tell beatmap nominators when they're allowed to take over. The second step in the ranking process comes when a map has reached at least plus 12 priority, referred to as the nomination stage. Beatmap nominators, a group of modders who have proven their modding competency, are the ones who actively push maps towards the ranked section. If you've ever seen beatmap threads before, you'd be able to recognize them. They have a purple name, the beatmap nominator title underneath it, and a gold nominator badge to show you just how vital they are to the ranking process. The job of a BN should be obvious. They nominate maps that they believe are high enough quality to be ranked. This map needs over 12 star priority before it should be considered for ranking. If a BN tries to mod or nominate a map with less than 12 star priority, they're met with this angry warning message. For maps higher than 12 star priority, however, this warning is replaced by some icons and radio buttons next to them. These are forum icons that appear on a thread showing a map's progress towards rank, and while there may be a lot of them here, only a few are used. The first of these, a thought bubble, is used to indicate a map's first nomination for rank. If a BN thinks your map is up to standard, they make a post with the bubble icon selected, and that icon appears in the upper right of their post. While it doesn't seem like much, this showcases a map at the top of the pending map subforum and notifies a ton of people of a map's progress towards rank in various ends of the Osu community. That's why a map getting bubbled is actually noteworthy in some cases. There's two directions your map can go when it's bubbled. One, your map's bubble can be popped by another BN. This essentially means a different beatmap nominator believes your map is not worthy for rank and therefore revokes the nomination through the popped bubble icon. Until the content of their post is dealt with, either through fixes or some other compromise, the map temporarily is sent back a step. The other direction your map could go, which I'm sure everyone prefers, is towards qualification. By receiving another BN's nomination in the form of a heart icon, a map is pushed out of the nomination stage and onto the third one, the qualification stage. At this point, your map is almost out the door. In the qualified beatmap listing, your map will receive tons of exposure, so if anyone notices any overlooked issues, they can post and report those issues to the quality assurance team. The QAT then looks at the reported issues and takes action by 1, assessing the issues as invalid, keeping your map on the road towards rank, or 2, assessing the issues as actual issues and disqualifying your map with the broken heart icon. Disqualification pushes a map back to the nomination stage, but it's not really a big deal. After handling the reported issues, you can just call back the same beatmap nominators and get your map renominated. It'll then go through the same process, and if it survives for 7 days, that means your map made it through the ranking process. And Yeah, get mods until your map reaches at least 12 star priority, get 2 nominations from BNs, then last through the qualified section. That about sums up the ranking process. For this path at least. I preface this whole explanation with uploading your map through the stable fallback release build, but what about the other 3? As of just under a week ago, all new map uploads are no longer managed through beatmap forum threads. Instead, they generate a new modding v2 discussion panel where essentially the same process takes place, albeit with a few minor changes. That means everything we just went over was essentially the familiar old ranking process. This new one may be foreign to most people, therefore it's probably worth comparing the two. So, even though both the forums and Modding V2 contain the same kind of mapping feedback, they're organized differently, and that changes how you shift between the modding stage and the nomination stage. Of course, in both cases you're required to get mods and improve your map, but with Modding V2, there is no priority indicator. Instead, star priority is replaced by this thing called the hype train, which is out of place is how I'd put it, I guess. By posting a praise comment in the general all difficulty section of a Modding V2 panel, 1 hype is added to the hype train, and once this reaches 12, nominators are able to see a nominate button in the same vein as previous nomination icons. Look, I'd understand if this were a new way to promote love maps, but for the ranking process, this hype seems kind of unnecessary. I mean, constructive feedback should be a better indicator of readiness for rank, not just people saying, I like the map. Though I suppose this is a way to expand the boundaries of the ranking process beyond just dedicated mappers, so it's not completely unfounded. Just odd, that's all. And who knows, maybe it'll change. Anyway, the nomination stage is slightly changed in Modding V2 as well. Popping bubbles is a way to revoke nominations in the old forum system, however here, there's no option of the sort. Nominations are final, and so without popping bubbles, a whole potential step back in the ranking process is eliminated. And the qualification stage is essentially the same as before. QAT members can use a disqualify button if your map has issues, after which BNs need to do 2 nominations again. So okay, it took a bit of time to explain all that, but overall the ranking process is fairly simple to grasp regardless of which path you take. There's 3 main stages and clear markers for when each stage begins and ends. The ranking process isn't so vague now that you know this info. At least, that's what you'd think. That covers the first part, the mechanical steps. I assure you though, if you start mapping under the belief that you can just fly through all these stages, you might as well give up now. There's a few elements that make the ranking process a struggle that you won't find on any wiki page or flowchart, which are essential for understanding what you'll be going through when you try to rank your maps. The ranking process is competitive. More and more OSU players have been trying out mapping over the last few years, and it's had a clear impact on the way people rank their maps. Everyone is desperate to find mods and even more desperate for nominations. The size of the beatmap nomination group has been pretty big for the last 3 years, around 80 people total currently, yet that still feels like nowhere near enough for the increasing amount of people trying to rank their maps. There's a constant feed of people looking for help and never enough modder or BN resources, so there's bound to be some people left behind. If you plan on ranking your map, you'll need to actively compete, or else you'll never make it anywhere. The ranking process is ambiguous. The steps themselves may not be, but the act of working through each one is. I mentioned that the ranking criteria is the metric by which modders and nominators judge rankability, but subjective quality is nowhere to be found on this huge list, meaning that's something controlled by individuals, each of which have differing opinions. Without experience, you never truly know whether mods are improving your map, or if they're just advising you to change stuff with baseless reasoning. Also, I said earlier that at least 12 star priority or 12 hypes are required to move from the modding stage onto the nomination stage, but without a clear idea of how rank-worthy your map is, you can easily feel lost. Personally, you may think your technically rankable map is ready by the time it has a few mods and 12 of these, while nominators may think otherwise, making you stuck between the modding and nomination stages. Like ranking limbo, basically. The only ways out of here are to make your map somehow better, or to find a nominator who believes your map is fine, the latter of which can sometimes mean asking for help from everyone on this list. Pairing that with the already mentioned competitiveness of ranking, you'll realistically never get every nominator's opinion, which makes this ambiguous aspect of the ranking process infinitely more frustrating. The ranking process is socially controlled. This one is hardest for some people to understand. Ranking a map is not a passive process. You need to actively work through each step, and being a peer review system, that means interacting with other people every step of the way. If you have mapping friends, you're gonna have an easier time learning and progressing through mapping than someone who's a loner. Being socially driven isn't really a problem though. In fact, it's what makes mapping worthwhile in my opinion. What sucks about this are the social pressures that are inherently tied to a social ranking system. For example, getting controversial maps ranked is harder than getting generic maps ranked because controversial maps attract opinions. If a controversial map is qualified, it'll receive tons of player exposure, and if public reception is negative, that could potentially lead to a disqualification. People have speculated that creative mapping has been on the decline because of this. Mappers are naturally averse to negative feedback, so they avoid making maps that could spawn that feedback. Likewise, beatmap nominators feel pressured not to nominate maps that the community could even possibly dislike, so promoting different mapping viewpoints isn't always practical. Whether you like it or not, there's no getting around how socially controlled the ranking process is, so you'll need to take that into account if you want to rank your maps. Lastly, the ranking process is time-consuming. By result of those previous three factors, everything about the ranking process is extremely slow. Finding mods takes forever because of competition, moving on to nominations takes forever because you don't know if BNs think your map is acceptable, and social pressures dictate that progressing through the ranking process faster than the lowest common denominator is unfair treatment. For what even? It's all in the name of making a map ready for rank. That long process is helpful the first time through, yet it's just a waste of time for experienced mappers. Like, imagine this sort of situation. I'm an experienced mapper and it takes me about 6 hours of work to make a full map set. Overall, its quality is about 8.5 out of 10 right from the get-go. Working through this whole long ranking process is meant to improve my map, but over the course of another 6 hours of improvement, the map's quality only goes up to an 8.7 out of 10. It's a negligible difference, yet it's considered normal for ranking a map, and I find it to be mostly unnecessary. A time-consuming waste that you should unfortunately be prepared for if you try to rank your map. Alright, that's enough ranting. What's the point of explaining all this? What I want to make clear is that the ranking process is more than just following a few basic steps, so you can't reasonably expect to succeed without a full understanding of it. Having at least some idea of what you're up against can help though, which is what this general overview of the ranking process and its less than straightforward aspects should provide. If only I could send this video to the me of 4 years ago who hopelessly tried to rank a map right out of the gate. Personally speaking though, I do wish the ranking process were less of a pain. There's nothing inherently wrong with the procedure itself. The mechanical steps are pretty solid. Just working through them is the actual challenge since there's so many obstacles that aren't at all necessitated by the mechanical steps of the process. If I could rank a map by just making a good map, manually boosting the priority to 12, then asking 2 BNs for nominations and being done with it, I wouldn't have so many full map sets in my graveyard. No BNs would agree to that though, nor would the mapping community let it pass, so I'll have to let my cocky dreams be dreams. One day the ranking process won't be so much of a pain. Anyway, that's about it. Hopefully the ranking process is clearer to you now, hopefully I won't see anyone misunderstanding what a bubble is anymore, and despite how much it may sound like I dislike it, I hope you find the ranking process as interesting as I do. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.